Welcome to the show, and thank you for your time, Dan. How are you this morning, sir?
Yeah, Talifa Lava. Yeah, great this morning. And thank you to you and your listeners.
Taeao, Dan. It's your first time on Radio Samoa. It's a privilege for all of us here to have you on the show this morning. Simply means it will be good to have a bit of your background before we continue on with our interview this morning. Tell us a little bit about yourself, especially your Samoan, Dan.
Yeah, so my grandmother, Yvonne McKenzie, was born in 1990 in Whagats, and lived to the ripe old age of 102. And so Grandma was the daughter of Samuel Vernon McKenzie. So he was a well-known businessman at the time in Samoa. And my dad attended St. Joseph's College for a time before moving back to New Zealand.
Right.
My grandmother, she lived an extraordinary life.
Right.
And being back in Parliament, it's been fantastic reconnecting with my Pacific roots.
Right.
And we have a really tight Pacific Labour caucus who have been really supportive.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Dan. Okay, you said you're going back to the Parliament. Congratulations. Because I can see you entered Parliament in 2022, lost your seat in 2023, and then returned in 2026. How has that up and down journey shaped your perspective on public service?
It has been tough, and as you rightly mentioned, it has peaks and troughs.
Right.
But I've been a strong believer in servant leadership. Service in the New Zealand Defence Force. That's what I did before entering politics.
Yeah.
And then when I lost my seat, I went back to the New Zealand Defence Force, and then I'm back here in Parliament. And so for me, that service does not change. I'm still serving the people of New Zealand and my inga. So very, very much service is part of my life.
Okay, Dan, you served more than 20 years in the New Zealand Army, including deployments to Afghanistan, I think, and the Solomon Islands. What lessons from the experience guide your approach to leadership today?
I think just the ability to talk to people, get to people in their communities, hear what they have to say. That was particularly important in the Solomon Islands. I was part of the regional assistance mission there. And I think New Zealand did very well because we would just sit with the locals, hear what they had to say. And I think that's an advantage that New Zealand does have. We're small. We understand the importance of those conversations. And I think that puts us at an advantage when we're working in the Pacific.
Right. Okay. Dan, I can also see that you were involved in major emergency responses like the Kaikoura earthquake. What did those moments teach you about community resilience and government preparedness?
I think having that engagement with the community before those events unfold is very important.
Yeah.
Especially, as a parliamentarian, it's just having those regular touch points with the community across all sectors.
Right.
So when you do need to lean into those relationships, when an emergency response starts, you can walk into those emergency operations centres and know who the key players are, so you can deliver support straight away.
Okay, Dan, so now you're Labour spokesperson for rural communities and small business. What are the biggest challenges you're hearing from these groups, especially in the region like Waimakariri?
Yeah, so everyone's doing it tough in New Zealand right now.
Right.
And the nature of work is changing. And as the Labour's spokesperson for small business, one of my key priorities is improving pathways for Pacific people to go into business.
Right.
There's huge opportunity there. And our Pacific population, it's young, it's capable, it's ambitious. And at the same time, we have some, very well-established businesses in New Zealand where the owners are actually approaching retirement. And a lot of these businesses still run in very traditional ways, sometimes even paper-based systems.
Right.
So it creates a real opening for the next generation, and young Pacific people can step in, modernise those businesses, bring new strategy, energy, and continue the legacy. So it's about that intergenerational opportunity and honouring what has been built while adapting for the future with a Pacific flavour. So I'm really passionate about that piece, and also around supporting sole traders, because for many Pacific families, flexibility is everything, and being a sole trader can provide that balance and allow people to earn a living while still caring for family, contributing to church, and serving their community. So I want to be able to make that pathway easier, whether it's through tax settings, access to advice, or reducing compliance barriers.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Dan, I was reading through some of the reports that many families in Waimakariri say that they are under increasing financial pressure. What practical steps do you believe government should take to ease the cost of living burden?
Yeah, so right now the government is trying to reassure New Zealanders, but that reassurance is not a plan. And this disruption could last for months, and we've not likely reached the peak of the crisis. And the government still hasn't been clear about what happens when we do. Businesses, farmers, households need certainty, not false hope. And the government must plan for the worst and be straight with New Zealanders about what that might look like. So in Waimakariri, soaring fuel prices are making things hard, and people were already doing it tough. Christopher Luxon promised to fix the cost of living. Instead, this government's choices have actually made it worse by prioritising tax cuts for landlords and speculators over Kiwis struggling to get by. And I suppose the flow-on effects, everything comes by truck, right? So higher fuel prices mean higher fuel prices, reduced mobility. It means we can't get our kids to school and sport and get to church. So in terms of what Labor will do, I mean, we would be straight with New Zealanders about the scale of the challenge that lies ahead. And, we would have answers ready for phases 3 and 4, and not trying to build the aircraft as we're flying it while this crisis is unfolding. And we will back those that are doing it tough. And it comes down to priorities. Nationals had the wrong priorities for 3 years. Tax breaks for tobacco companies. Half-price public transport was axed. Clean car subsidies were scrapped. And Kiwis are paying for those choices now.
Okay, excellent. Excellent, Dan. You've spoken openly about failing the maths and literacy tests before joining the Army. What does that early experience teach young Pacific people who may doubt their own potential?
So, school's not the end of your education journey.
Right.
It's the beginning. And, I think sometimes the education system doesn't serve everyone in our community well. And I think my learning started when I actually entered the workplace. So resilience and perseverance is the key to success, I feel. And sometimes we always have that self-doubt. But doing what you feel is right, doing right by your ainga is extremely important.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions, more questions, Dan, please. With your background in defense planning and operations, how do you think New Zealand should prepare for future regional challenges in the Indo-Pacific?
So it's very important that we have a continuous visiting schedule across the Pacific.
Right.
Relationships need to be worked on. You can't take them for granted, particularly with our Pacific family. Keeping engaged, even with those small events that unfold, reaching out to each other, connection through our RSE schemes. That is a huge contributor to our relationship across the Pacific. And so we must make sure that we maintain those relationships and make sure that when workers do come here from the Pacific, their working conditions, their pay are well protected.
Right. Okay, my last question is, what message would you like to share with Pacific youth listening this morning who are thinking about careers in public service or the military?
Just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Get in there. You have a fantastic community, Ainga, behind you.
Right.
And we love to see it when young people succeed, particularly Pacific youth.
Right.
And it's fantastic seeing them occupying those positions, whether it be in Parliament, senior leadership roles within government. It's just fantastic to see. And we're right behind you 100%.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. Okay, before I let you go, I've just got a message that your leader, Chris Hipkins, and some of the MPs will be in Auckland today. Are you going to be a part of the group, or?
So I've got a lot of engagements down in Canterbury, so I'm shooting down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, really looking forward to hearing what our Pacific MPs have to say about that engagement up in Auckland.
Yeah. Okay. Are you preparing yourself for the election in the next 7 months?
Absolutely. We'll be working really hard as a Labor caucus to prove to the communities out there that we deserve to govern.
Okay. Dan Rosewarne, Whaftai Tele Lava, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Whaftai. O le songa e Dan Rosewarne, o se sui whaipule le Labour Party, ma le taranoa ne whaitai a whauri tautua mo rere Samoa Sfalima, e wa tolu amo.